all know how things go. Humans on Earth do some pretty f***ed up shit, and then they die and they end up in hell.
Okay, so Helluva Boss has finally come to Amazon Prime, and with it, the show has received a visual overhaul and a new episode 0. So today I want to talk about the show's transition and just how I feel about the new episode. And now I think I should start by clarifying that I've been a fan of Helluva Boss for a few years now. I was someone who was around for the initial release of Has-Been Hotel's pilot, and then eventually Helluva Boss's pilot and the resulting series. And honestly, I'm someone who has stuck around with the series for as long as I have, just purely because of the fact that I actually enjoy the series. Me personally, I think that this series is the perfect blending of chaos, wit, comedy, and of course, well-intentioned writing. Really enjoyed both seasons that we've gotten so far, and I'm looking forward to what we get in the future. However, that's not to say that I'm someone who has agreed with every decision the show has made. However, that's going to be the same for most shows when it comes to just watching and engaging with any sort of animated comedy, or just general comedy, or, you know, whatever the hell Family Guy is. Seriously, I've been around for the entirety of the show so far, and I'm willing to admit that sometimes the show has taken a swing and missed the ball a few times. However, I'm not here to have that conversation today, and instead I just want to focus on the new stuff we've gotten so far. And really, when it comes to the new stuff we've received, I think that the people behind the show have done a really quite good job. Seriously, I've seen all sorts of people online say whatever they want about the story and characters and the writing of the show. However, when it comes to the animation and the look of the show, everyone's pretty much willing to agree that this show looks fantastic. And this continues with the show's transition over to Amazon Prime and the new episode. But before we get into talking about the new episode, I really think I should mention the fact that, of course, the entirety of the show got a good overhaul. It's nothing too massive, but when you look at a few scenes for long enough, you can actually see that a good amount of effort has gone into revamping and updating the look of the show for its transition over to Amazon Prime. And when it comes to just that aspect of this show's transition, I think that the show's creators have done a really quite good job. They've really managed to update the look of the show whilst keeping it close to what the show was when it was releasing on YouTube. Which personally I think really just talks volumes to the fact that this show looked fantastic, even when it was on YouTube. Seriously, this show has always looked fantastic, and it even continues to look fantastic now.
Bullshit. Bullshit. Derivative. That I love. I absolutely love.
So, the new episode, what's it about? Well, really, I think that some of you might think I'm being a little cheeky by saying it's a new episode. Because honestly, what it really is a revamp and an update to the show's original pilot. And that's not to say that the pilot has been updated like the rest of the show. No. What we get here is a total reconstruction of that pilot. Seriously, when it comes to this new pilot, or episode 0 as it's being called, what the show's creators have managed to do is really build off a lot of the ideas that came after the initial pilot. And really what this has allowed the creators to do has been to build on a lot of the story and character ideas that the show has developed across its entire run. Now, really, when it comes to those story and character decisions, I don't want to comment on a lot of the sorts of arguments that people like to have online about those decisions, just purely because of the fact that I don't believe that I'm deep enough into the show to actually comment on a lot of those conversations that are going on currently. And really, I say this because I know that the show's only halfway through the 4-season show that the creators want it to have. And what I think this means is that the show will have a lot of really impactful story and character moments coming further down the line in the show's remaining 2 seasons. However, I'm getting a little sidetracked, and really I should be talking about episode 0. So, to get back to that, I'm going to start off by saying that I really enjoyed the character moments in this new episode, or this new pilot, or this new episode 0, whatever you want to call it. Really, Blitz has been one of my favourite characters across the show so far, and in this new pilot, he really acts more like himself in the entirety of the show, as opposed to how he did in the initial pilot. That's not to say that in the initial pilot he was acting out of character or anything like that. I just feel like this new, depiction of him is more in line with how he's been developed since the initial pilot. Of course, I really like Millie, Moxie and Luna as well, but I really think that Blitz is the main character of this show, and really in saying that I of course would like to see more from Millie, Moxie and Luna, but really I don't think that this episode was the right time for a lot of their sorts of character development moments. And really, we get to see a little bit of Stolas in this episode as well. And really, Stolas is always just a mood. Of course, it's a little weird to see Stolas back at this point in time where he is just like this in this kind of girl boss era. But really, I actually enjoyed seeing Stolas like this. Of course, just seeing the way he says these sorts of things and communicates with Blitz is kind of ridiculous, it's over the top, and it's very funny.
She's not still mad about that, is she? Extremely.
Now, when it comes to the story of this new episode, it's really nothing too special. It's a nice and well-written update to the initial pilot. Now, for the story of this episode, it's really nothing too special. However, I will say that it is a good update and modernization of the initial pilot. Like I said earlier, this episode has really drawn on a lot of the story and character development moments that have come from the entirety of the show's run so far. And this new episode has really managed to use a lot of the story and character developments that have come so far to rewrite the initial pilot in such a way that everything really lines up with the story and characters, especially with how they've been presented across the entire series so far. Now, I don't know if there's a general opinion online already as to just how well this episode has managed to pull off rewriting the initial pilot, but when it comes to me personally, however, I think that the creators have actually managed to do a really good job with just how they've managed to rewrite the pilot for this new episode. If you go back and you rewatch the initial pilot, you can really see how the creators are being quite fluid with a lot of the story and character decisions that they're taking at that point in time. This even factors into the series' overall tone. And really, when you go back and you rewatch the initial pilot, you can see how some of these story and character decisions didn't quite flow accurately or smoothly into what the series eventually became. However, with this new episode, you can actually see how a lot of these story and character decisions will be smoothly followed up from and developed properly into the future. And now, in saying this, I'd want to say that I don't think that this new episode makes the entirety of the series any better or anything, or fixes anything, because really I do think that the episode, while still being a rewrite and update to the initial pilot, is still just a lot of the initial pilot, but updated for what the series has now become. Honestly, I think that a lot of the story and character decisions made with this episode have all been really quite good and really beneficial to what the series has now become. And so finally, I think I'm at a point now with this review that I'm just going to talk about how I felt about the episode overall. And personally, I liked the episode. I really enjoyed watching it, and I thought I had a good bit of fun watching it. Especially after rewatching the initial pilot and seeing how this new episode has really updated a lot of the show's story and character decisions. Also, I'm able to admit that this episode was decently funny and had me laughing a few times. Now, lastly, just as I go to end this video, I want to talk briefly about the animation. When you go back and you watch the initial pilot, you can see a lot of fluidity in the initial animation. And this really flows with just how the creators saw the series at the time. Everything is very fluid and everything is very smooth. The creators haven't really quite figured out what they wanted for the visual aesthetic of the show at that point in time. And so really with this new episode, you get a good chance to see just what the episode and the entire show has become over time. And really, I think that the show, and this episode in general, looks gorgeous. Of course, like I said earlier, this has been a show that everyone online has universally just regarded as something that looks pretty fantastic. And really that continues here. As really, what I think the show has managed to do quite well is really keep to the core idea of what the show wanted to be when it was initially releasing with the initial pilot, but also update it for a modern look that really looks like a professionally made cartoon. Of course, whenever anybody talks about 2D animation, of course everybody has to say that it does take a lot of time and a lot of effort to put together, which is all very true. And really, I know this as an animator. Just personally, I know how much personal time and really a lot of effort has to go into making a show like this. And really, I think that when it comes to this show, the creators have been really quite fantastic with just how much work they've put into the show. Because really, you can see how much effort has gone into making the show look great in just every frame. It's a show like this that really takes advantage of the medium of animation and just being animated. You can see the love for the craft in just how the animation is so smooth, and you can see it in just how detailed the backgrounds are. And really, this show has taught me something, because honestly, I did not know that you could get so much use out of the color red before watching this show. And really, that's it from me today. Helluva Boss has transitioned over to Amazon Prime and we have a new episode out. So please, everyone, let me know what you thought of the show's transition and its new episode in the comment section down below. Do all the YouTube stuff, like, comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.